Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sanity podcast. Dave Briggs here with Allison Camerata. And Saturday, the 29th, is a Tesla takedown, an international day of protest against Elon Musk's severe cuts to the federal government under the guise of Doge. And it coincides with a crash, relatively speaking, in the Tesla stock since December. We have with us one of the experts of Elon Musk, of Tesla, one of the early investors and one of the most significant investors. At one point owned more than 250,000 shares of Tesla stock. Ross Gerber is the co-founder and CEO of Gerber
At
Kawasaki.
one time, we had almost 500,000 shares.
Almost 500,000. So you've been selling. Why?
Well, we started selling several years ago. Really, the biggest reason was we made 20 times our money in a very short period of time it was actually 5 years ago, almost to the day, when Tesla was about $30 a share, and it ran up to about $400 a share, where it peaked in November 21. And so when Elon started, his process of buying Twitter, we became concerned. And that's when I became really concerned about Elon, being distracted. And I was hoping he wouldn't run Twitter because I didn't think he was suited to run Twitter. But the plan was that he wasn't going to run Twitter, and eventually he would have a CEO and such. So I invested in that. But in that point, that's when the tweeting, amped up into, problematic issues, attacks on the gay community. And, I became unhappy with this approach to market Tesla, basically. And so we started selling stock, and we've been selling stock. So part of it is financial planning, and part of it is, just the change in Elon. And then recently, now I'm really unhappy with what's happening, obviously, with the brand, and now it being sort of a pariah brand.
Yeah. Before we get to the pariah brand, which of course we do want to, particularly with the protests coming up, but about the change in Elon that you talk about, what's going on with Elon Musk?
Well, part of it is a change. Like, part of it is Elon has always been, not normal. Like a lot of people in Los Angeles, to be honest. People like Elon don't bother me at all. You see their genius and you see their quirks. And that was never an issue. And he was always out of politics for most of the time. And when Biden ran years ago, I, kind of tweeted out, I kind of sent an email to the team at Tesla and said, Biden really wants to help Tesla, and like all of the things Biden wants to do are pro EV. So maybe we should have Elon maybe say something positive, And it was like, no, we're not going to get into politics. No, we're not taking sides. And I was like, okay, that's short-sighted. So when Biden won, he did this like EV summit at GM, and he was basically saying GM and Ford are the leaders in EVs. And Elon went off the deep end, and he was super pissed, and he was like determined to get the credit he deserves for building the EV industry, which is true. So that was the beginning of his sort of taking a right turn on politics. And part of that was also predicated by what happened during COVID, when California was trying to shut down the Tesla factory for COVID, and Elon fought it, and California was like, F you. And that's when he decided, I'm moving everything to Texas. So there was this kind of like two-step process. And then the third piece of this was personal, and most people didn't know this. I did, because Elon's daughter, Vivian, goes to a school called Crossroads, which is in my neighborhood. And so, I was already hearing the gossip about Elon's trans kid, who was vocally speaking out against Elon. And so that was happening before the media caught on. But she became extremely vocal, and that's when Elon took his anti-gay, anti-trans positions, which, were predicated on his belief system that the woke culture converted his child from a boy to a girl. And, we can debate woke culture till you're blue in the face, but, blaming your child, who obviously changed their sexuality, based off like a culture or school, seems not fair. So I think there was a combination of this blame of the woke culture, this lack of respect he felt, or slightedness from Biden, followed by increasingly disturbing tweets about race, um, anti-Semitism, and anti-gay behavior that really kind of, went the wrong direction. And then he just decided to go all in on Trump because he now believes, I think, the woke virus is like the worst thing that could happen to the world or something. So he's trying to save the world from wokeness,
But that happened right as the assassination attempt
Right.
occurred. And I never really figured out, maybe why that got him off the sidelines and firmly, suddenly, in the Trump
Right.
camp.
Well, he came out and endorsed Trump right after that. And I think the perception from Elon was that woke culture was now trying to like kill off the anti-woke leader. And so he was going to stand up and now fight for this cause because clearly they're trying to kill. You know, there's still a lot of questions about that, what I call supposed assassination attempt, because we really don't know much about this kid and it sort of disappeared. And he certainly wasn't woke. The kid was not woke. So
Oh.
I don't think this was anything more than a crazy guy. But that said, Elon realized when he took over Twitter how much power he gained internationally, like just from owning a social media platform that was so crucial to international communication. And he gained a ton of power. Everybody all of a sudden was paying attention because in the rest of the world, they use these social media apps for communication because the newspapers and such usually suck or are controlled by the government. So Twitter is crucially important for people in, let's say, Bangladesh to share information because they just don't get good information from the government. And so it became an international story. And then when he went all in on Trump, he realized that he could buy himself into the most powerful position possible in some ways because Trump was desperate. He knew he could help Trump win, and then Trump would owe him big time. And he played that card and it worked.
Yeah. It's been an incredible,
It's an incredible story, I tell you that.
No, I appreciate how you've laid out the evolution from having a front row seat on it the way you did. And I think that
Well,
that's
yeah, when
really-
we started, he was just like this EV like geek / space guy who needed lots of money, and like was not succeeding, like his companies were losing lots of money. And so there was this constant need for capital, and we gave him capital at crucial times, which paid off handsomely for us, and but he was a much more humble, likable guy when he needed money.
Let me ask you this, Ross, because the cover story is that he's helping to slash government waste.
Right.
But as we know, he's doing it with a chainsaw. And
Right.
so do you think that it's, I don't believe that. I don't believe that they're not being strategic enough. They're not critical thinkers. This is my opinion. So I don't think that that is the real motivation. Do you think it's vindictiveness like we're talking about? Do you think it's trying to get rid of the oversight over SpaceX and Tesla? Like, what do you think? Why are you smiling? What do you
Well,
think?
because I was just reading that tons of people are leaving the SEC now,
Right.
and since
Correct.
I'm regulated by the SEC, and I actually think the SEC is understaffed and tries their best. And if you understood the amount of fraud that goes on in the financial services industry, it's just endless. And then when you throw in crypto, it's like endless. Like literally every day, people try to like hack or scam our team into like getting other people's money. Like we have so much security. So the SEC is a really important, government agency, and oftentimes we don't like the SEC because they're trying to do their jobs. But in my experience, and I've been audited twice by the SEC, and it's a pain. And they did a great job. Like they uncover everything they're supposed to uncover. I run a clean ship, so we get through this stuff. But if you don't run a clean ship, they're going to find it, and they're really good, like at it. And it's like 6 months. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that at all. So part of it is personal and vindictive, like dismantling the SEC.
How has his leadership of Doge, his support of President Trump's agenda, impacted the brand of Tesla?
I mean, I can't go to a dinner with people without this conversation coming up, which like so many people have sold their Teslas, including my relatives, like all these people I talked into buying Tesla are now like, oh, we've sold our Tesla, and I'm like, I sold one of my Teslas and bought a Rivian for my wife, which I've been very happy with, but I've kept my Cybertruck because the Cybertruck kind of saved my life during the fires. So I owe the Cybertruck a little bit of love. But what bothers me, because I've spent so much time helping build the brand of Tesla and being the sort of media face of Tesla for a decade during the growth years, I love Tesla and I love the brand, and I think it's a crime what he's done, because climate change is the biggest issue we face. Because if you don't understand what's happening to Earth right now, we are at risk. And it's everywhere. It could be fires in South Carolina, it could be floods, it could be freezing weather, it could be hurricanes, it could be tornadoes. I mean, tornadoes killed 35 people just the other day. Like, when are people going to realize what's happening is potentially reversible? We have solutions, and Tesla is one of those solutions. So this is a huge step backwards for the world, that people don't like the brand. And that's why I'm speaking out, because it's time for Elon to go. Okay, just be Doge, be Elon, and spare us this nonsense. And Tesla needs a new CEO and a brand rehabilitation in a hurry, you know. But to see Tesla just dying off is just so sad to me.
But again, you said a crime. How would you describe the damage he's done to the brand?
Well, like, when Tesla first was starting, when you bought a Tesla, you almost, like, you were kind of like, I'm green and you guys aren't green, and you felt good that you actually were doing something. Even though you paid more for an EV, you felt good that you're actually doing something to get off the fossil fuel system, which is the supporter of Iran, Russia, and all the enemies in Saudi Arabia, and all the enemies of America and Iran. So all our enemies, we actually fund through gas purchases. And so it doesn't make any sense to me not to have an EV, you know? So the brand grew into this incredibly loved, huge following, and it was all predicated around solving climate. You know, it's easy to get, and Elon used this. It's easy to get people motivated to solve climate, you know, and it appeals to the core customer of Tesla, which is somebody who cares about the future of the Earth. And so when Tesla was able to scale and get to 2 million cars in production, they were able to sell all their cars no problem, because people wanted a choice. So when it turned to politics and it turned to culture wars, I mean, basically, like, everything you could possibly do not to sell a product, Elon's done it. And so now when you think about the brand Tesla, most people are embarrassed. Even if they're driving the car, they're like, I still want to drive my Tesla, or I'm underwater. Like, if I sell my Tesla right now, I'll lose $10,000. Like, it sucks. I don't want to do that, you know? And so a lot of people are just stuck with their cars. People feel bad. They've lost, I mean, billions in value. There's class action suits that are just like warming up right now that will be filed soon. I'm not going to, like, lay down and just let Tesla die because of Elon. And people are like, oh, who are you? And I go, wait, 87% of Tesla is not owned by Elon. 87% of Tesla is owned by the public, by me, okay, by pension funds, by individual investors. And somebody has to say something, because the board of directors of Tesla are really the criminals of all of this, because they just aren't
they've
doing
been
their
mute.
job.
I mean, as you point out, they've been quiet. And so why are they rolling over?
Because they've been paid. You know, Robin Delholm, the chairman of the board, has made $600 million on Tesla stock. That's unheard of for a board member. Board members make about $400K a year. If you're a board member at Disney or IBM or Apple, you make $400K a year and you get some stock options. Okay. That's the job. You have 4 meetings a year. You do your committees. You know, it's a fluffy job. Okay. What Elon's done is he gave them 50 times what they deserve. So, all on stock options, and basically said, you know, you do what I say and you're rich. And so that's the way it is. And nobody wants to piss off Elon, or kick him off the board, or take their options away, or whatever. They're not what we call independent directors. So according to the NASDAQ listing, the companies are supposed to be independent directors, have independent directors running it. And this is just not the case. And that's why the Delaware courts have ruled against Elon's pay package now twice, because the board of directors is an illegal board, essentially. And that has not been rectified. And it continues to expose Tesla to more liability. And, you know, if you get rid of the SEC, you know, I guess nobody's going to do anything about it.
Guess not.
The stock is down 40% from its December all-time high. It's had a good week. How much further can it fall?
With Tesla, you're at a valuation of about 120 times its past earnings and about 90 to 100 times its future earnings. And the future earnings estimates continue to drop. So the question I pose to investors is, why does Tesla deserve a 2 to 3x multiple from the best companies in the world? And that is where the market, what I fear, is going to reconcile in the next 12 months, is that Tesla isn't more special than Meta or Nvidia or Microsoft and should have a similar valuation, and the stock could drop another 50%.
And I've always wondered, it's worth 870 billion today. Ford, GM, and Stellantis, which is Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, those three companies combined are worth 125 billion. So the economics of it never made any sense. Now that BYD, a Chinese company, appears to have lapped them in technology, you can charge your car in 5 minutes. It seems like there's a lot further they could fall.
Right. And I was going to say, comparing to Ford, GM, and Stellantis is like, comparing an apple to an orange. Tesla fundamentally is a software and hardware company, where Ford and GM are basically bad hardware companies. And so they're not comparable because they don't build software, and the software in those cars suck. And the future of automobiles is around software. Hardware too, but mostly software. And so, like, when you think about Tesla, they're not really in the camp of GM and Ford. They're in the camp much more of Meta, Nvidia, Microsoft. That's why I compare it to those kind of companies. But when you start, sort of extrapolating out to BYD, which is the leader in my mind in technology and EV technology right now, BYD can make batteries, they can make EVs, they make lots of stuff too, but they're doing a great job making low cost batteries and EVs. They're cheap cars, but they're quite good. They've made full self-driving software around NVIDIA platform, which, I think will end up working pretty good. And they're making great batteries with CATL and scale. And Chinese consumers care about price first and foremost. And you look at the price of the Tesla, which is still running around $40,000 in the emerging markets. It can't even come close to these $15,000 and $20,000 cars that you can buy from BYD. If you want to be in robo taxis, Waymo is the leader in robo taxis. So you can get into these businesses for way cheaper than investing in Tesla.
Yeah.
And it's all predicated on this magic that Elon has that somehow makes the company worth several $100 billion more than it should be.
Yeah. Ross, I have one more question for you. Do you think that him taking his eye off the ball at Tesla, are there any safety issues connected to
Well,
that?
if you live in Austin, yeah, they're going to be testing those cabs in Austin, and they don't work. So, that's going to be an interesting one. I don't know how they're going to get around safety once they start putting these cars on the road, because my truck can't drive me very far without me having to disengage. So, and I think it's great driver assist software, and I like it, but calling it full self-driving is just a lie at this point. It's not even close to full self-driving. It's called you supervise driver assist program. So it's really taken a step back in my mind. We were talking about this the other day. Like, when I was using full self-driving a year ago, it was better than it is now, and it's like now I can't even look at my phone. I can't move. I can't do anything. It's like,
Why? Because he's taking his eye off the ball. I mean, is it connected to
no,
Elon
because
Musk?
they were forced to put in all these safety features because it's not that safe. And once they were forced to put in safety features, you can't really do anything but drive the car even when it's on full self-driving,
Wow.
and so essentially what it is it's not safe. Like, there's no way I would turn it on and get in the back seat and just trust it to drive me to work right now, but I get in a Waymo and I do all the time, and they just drive you around and you don't even think twice now,
No wonder he's now attacking the courts. There's probably about 1,000 lawsuits pending. My last
Oh,
question.
there's many more coming. You got 3 main lawsuits. So you got a full self-driving lawsuit because they promised this would work on every car for 5 years, and it doesn't. And I've bought full self-driving 3 times now on 3 different vehicles. And so in theory, I've paid $30,000 for software that's never worked. And then you've got the loss of value of the vehicles lawsuit, because of Elon's actions. The resale values have dropped so much, people have lost billions of dollars. So you've got that. on top of all the SEC lawsuits, based off securities issues,
And the Trump administration has done everything, and we'll let you go here on this. They've done everything to prop this company up, include the Commerce Secretary on national television
Yeah.
telling people to buy stock, which was
illegal,
enough to make
by
my
the
head
way.
explode. And then there
Yeah,
was
that
the
was a
moment
first.
at the White House on the lawn where most companies were outraged, and well, most citizens were as well, that it was essentially a Tesla commercial at the White House.
Illegal.
Right.
I actually felt I wouldn't want that if I were Tesla. I think that actually
Right.
solidified Tesla as being a symbol of Donald Trump. Do you think it helped or it hurt?
I think you're right. I think it was such a, when you're like desperate and you think you're doing stuff that's going to help, but it actually makes it even worse. Like it's just proving how desperate you are. When Howard Lutnick is like recommending your stock, that's like a bad day for Tesla, right? And the worst part of the White House sham ad thing with Trump is that Trump doesn't drive, and everybody knows this. Okay, so you got a guy who doesn't drive. Then he says he's going to write a check for the car, which everybody knows that Tesla doesn't take checks. Okay, you can't buy a car with Tesla with a check. Okay, you just can't. You got to go on your phone. You got to buy it on your phone. Okay. And then the third and the biggest mistake of the whole ad was then he picks the old Model S. He doesn't have a new Model Y out there because they're just launching the new Model Y. It'd be nice if everybody knew about it. And then he doesn't pick the Cybertruck. Like, how does Trump not pick the Cybertruck? It was just a sad, sad ad for Tesla, followed by Lutnick the next day. And I was like, dude, what could be worse advertising?
Oh my gosh. And one more thing, Ross. So what do you think's gonna happen? What do you think's gonna happen this weekend? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah,
The
question.
protest. The
Well,
nationwide protest.
my wife drove into a protest the other day in Santa Monica, which is the saddest thing in the world because Santa Monica is literally littered with Teslas. And like, we are the home base of Tesla. And there was a protest at the Santa Monica Tesla store. And I was like, dude, it's so bad that like liberals are like keying their own cars. You know what I mean? It's like, so I find that if people are protesting in Santa Monica, that just gives you an idea of how bad things have got. This is exactly what you're saying, the easiest symbol to attack that represents Trump. Even though Tesla represents the exact opposite, people now perceive Tesla as the target, as a direct attack on Trump and Elon. And they are going to do more and more and more. And more people, even if they like Tesla, don't want to drive Teslas because now they're scared. And I'm like worried too. I drive my Cybertruck. I'm like, I don't want somebody like vandalizing my truck. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well,
I'm a green guy, like I've been through a fire. Give me a freaking break,
will conservatives buy Teslas?
Well, we got that burst of, or at least people online who are like, I'm going to support Elon. I'm going to go out and buy a Tesla, which if they do, that's great. And then the other day, even the Oil and Gas Association posted something about Tesla and I retweeted it. I was like, boy, it's bad when the oil and gas people are even feeling bad for you, And, and that went pretty far actually. So I'm not sure what people are doing, but what I do know is it's very hard to buy a Tesla in many of the red markets because they're not actually allowed to be sold. So like if you want to go buy a Tesla in most of the red states, you can't actually find a dealership because they're not allowed. Okay. So that's the irony. So yes, I do think that they sold some cars because of the ads to conservatives, but is this a meaningful number that will, affect earnings or whatever? I don't know. That's not the way I see it. The way I see it is everybody can't wait to get rid of their Tesla.
Yeah.
We'll let you go on this. We always ask our guests to give us their dose of sanity, how they do stay sane amidst all the madness. Is there one thing that you do that kind of keeps you level-headed?
It's funny you brought this up because I am not sane at all, and I just survived the fires. And I live in a surreal world, like 2 blocks away from hell. There's National Guard fully armed, like 2 blocks from my house. Like it's the checkpoint. And I've gone through one of the most insane experiences of my life. And the way I have a lot of mental issues right now because I was there the day of the fire, fighting the fire, and I was there the whole time, and it sucked. It sucked. So I went through, in particular, the first night when I wasn't sure if my house was going to burn down, and I was with my family and everybody in the Palisades in a hotel panicking. People were panicking. I adopted a philosophy that I will give you guys that I now hold as dear. Um, Number one is, if it hasn't happened to you yet, why are you worried about it? You must maintain positivity no matter what happens, no matter how bad things are. The worst case hasn't happened, then stop worrying about it. You got to think of the positive outcomes from you can't control the things that happen to you, but you can control how you deal with it. And then the second thing is faith. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Faith is a belief. And it's a belief that you're going to get through this and you're going to be okay. And if you focus around positivity and faith, you can find sanity in this insane world, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, the things I've seen make no sense and doesn't reconcile. And I haven't reconciled it yet. But and I add focus on this because the way I got through the fire and dealing with almost dying was focus on what I had to do, to save my neighborhood and my house, and to survive. And so positivity, I knew I knew I was going to get through this. I had faith that God would protect me. I had focus in a period of time that was extremely stressful and desperate. And then I was saved by the firefighters, and they saved our neighborhood, and I'm back home. I'm one of the first people to move back into what's left of the Palisades, which is 300 homes out of almost 6,000. So if I leave you with anything, no matter how hard things get, stay positive, believe in yourself, believe in God, and keep your focus.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Ross. Thank you for that. That's really
I
important.
know that's heavy, but I'm
No,
sorry.
man,
That's
and
just where I'm at in life right now.
That's
that
good.
was awesome. I
And-
mean, that was incredible.
And God bless those firefighters. I
Yeah.
mean, God bless them for
I can't tell you.
I know.
I can't tell you. You can't be grateful enough for these. They were all men, that I worked with during that week of the fire. But they were all heroes. They're like angels.
Yeah.
When you're fighting to survive, and you're gonna lose. When they showed up, I can't tell you how it felt. I have a lot of this on video. I might make a short, like, sort of documentary about what happened in the Palisades, because I documented part of this in between trying to survive.
You should.
I think that would be
But
powerful.
I haven't posted any of it online. Like, it's pretty gnarly. But
Oh, we'd
now
love to
that
help.
it's over, it's like I look at this and I'm like, I can't believe what did you do in the first quarter? I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, what did I go through?
Yeah.
But I'm a survivor. My family's got through. My kids are in good shape. It's all good.
Thank God. Thank God. And we
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing
That
that.
was
We'll
that
do
was
whatever we
poignant, my
can
friend.
to help you amplify it if you decide to do that.
Well, everybody goes through hard times. I mean, you were mentioning you yourself went through a hard time recently, and it's extremely difficult to try to understand why things happen.
Yes.
Well, if
And
we can help,
Indeed.
as Allison said, amplify that message about what you went through, what everyone went through, and
Yeah.
and
I'm sure
firefighters were
Alton has
happy to do
adopted a
so.
similar philosophy.
Yeah.
It's the only
For
way you
sure.
can get through these
And
things.
faith is, what I learned is that faith is like the belief that you'll be okay without any evidence
Right.
of it.
100%.
Yeah. And
You have
that's
to
what,
completely surrender yourself
yes,
that you have no control, and
that's
there's
right.
no proof that this is going to work out at all
That's
for
right.
you.
And you still have to have faith. I know. I agree. It's really hard. And that's the lesson that I learned too. So,
Yeah, it's hard.
we really appreciate you saying that. That's that was an extra dose of sanity.
Yeah.
Thank you
Well,
very
trying to
much.
find sanity in today's world is extremely difficult, especially with social media. So I'd like to leave the listeners of, get off your social media. It's driving people crazy. It's a mental health crisis they've created. The tech people don't care how many kids' brains they blow up with this nonsense. But the longer you're on social media, the more mental health issues you have. The more time you spend in nature, the more time you spend with your friends and family, the less mental health issues you have.